about in December about my school bus ticket. So obviously I was at school, it's first year, and I had a bus ticket all damn time. And apparently this year is different. And I know before anybody says anything, it's 50% capacity. It doesn't matter. It's up to the state. If you get if you apply for bus tickets, the state that provides you with the means to get to school. Again, such thing as a free education that doesn't exist in this country. There's no such thing as free education. Everything's pay. You have to pay. You have to pay a hefty price to get an education in this country. But again, it's not that I care. I couldn't care less if I never learned one thing in school. It's just the principle. It's really the end of the day the principle. And listen to this, I have to pay €100 and something a week to get to school before the school is closed, obviously in December. So I wasn't at school all the time. Like I only went back the first, a few weeks before, the school was closed in December. And obviously that was pretty hefty because there's €100 something. So it was nearly, I think, nearly €300 or €400 I had to pay for for 3 or 4 weeks, which is pretty hefty. Like let's be honest, there's tenner in and tenner out, for 5 days a week. It's pretty pricey. And I don't mean to be saying whinging and whinging, but again, this is what I'm going to talk about here. Bus Aaron, for example, I rang them many times about my situation. I rang them over somebody else too once, who got in touch with me because I know there's many other people in the country, but it's pure Bus Aaron's ignorance. Like literally, they just couldn't be bothered to help you out, and they're just being pure ignorant. Like many times, the majority of times I rang them, we just got abuse on the phone. I might as well be honest, I got abuse and smart comments and smart Alex. With a very serious situation, as I said to one of them the other day, would they care to pay the bill? Would they care I put it on their tab and they could pay it out of the one paycheck? Because they have been very ignorant, and he started speaking under his breath, and I couldn't hear him. But again, it's the height of bad malice to speak when somebody's trying to speak to you and trying to get something sorted. For him to go and start speaking, taking it as more or less taking it as a joke, and this person gets paid for his job. That happened before. Got pure ignorance out of Bus Aaron, and again, you might be saying, why did you not go to a TD, a senator, or minister, or anything like that? I went to nearly every county councillor in the county, and I'm not joking when I say that. Went to a good 10 of them, and I just said to them, Bus Aaron, it's just being pure ignorant. And again, politicians are ignorant, but again, this is pure ignorance altogether. And yeah, that's, and guess what? Basically, the majority, like I got in touch with two TDs for Cavan, and one Fianna Fáil, one Sinn Féin, just because I am honestly just annoyed, and I just wanted to kind of an apology at the same time for the pure ignorance I have to go through. And I know there's so many in the country, but again, Bus Aaron's not helping it. And I know everybody might say it's 50% capacity, but this is the thing. Guess what? So I contacted two TDs. The two TDs came back to me. They could not get anybody in Bus Aaron, anybody in higher ups of Bus Aaron. None of them would speak to them. None of them would speak to them. Pure and simple. They utterly said to one of them that we just refuse to talk to you. And that's more or less what was said to for a TD. A person who's representing Cavan and Monaghan, was told, basically, we don't care. More or less, I think they're number 40, to be honest, in disguise. But that was basically, and as Matt Cowdy raised in the door, Sinn Féin TD for Cavan and Monaghan, he raised in the door and he said that it completely ignored Sinn Féin representatives. That's just Sinn Féin, and one of them was in government. One of the TDs who went to was in government, the Fianna Fáil. And they ignored him. And they really just pure ignored him. And the same with the county councillors, they're just getting sick of Bus Aaron. Because Bus Aaron won't acknowledge them. They won't acknowledge them, just basically saying fuck all to them. And who's responsible for this? And I already have done it. You might say, why did they not write to the Minister for Transport, Eamon Ryan? But he's probably asleep, so don't worry about that. But yeah, the person with charge, and the person who's in charge, is the Department of Transport that once, but it gives funding to Bus Aaron. But at the same time, it is the responsibility of the Minister for Education, Norman Foley, to ensure that children get their education to get to school. It's her responsibility. But apparently, nobody, as we all know, Norman Foley couldn't manage a kebab shop in Northampton Street. She's just incapable. Like literally, she hasn't sorted this problem out. Like she's the one who's responsible, and even I asked one of the TDs, and she's responsible. She's supposed to take this hit for this. It's not Eamon Ryan, because we're going to contact Eamon Ryan over it. But it's her that's responsible. So obviously, I wrote a letter to her. I sent off emails to her department. Sent off emails to her. Even the Fianna Fáil TD has passed on the letter, and along with posting it and paying for to send it for your staff to sign. That way we paid extra for it. to get it up to Dublin, along with along with the TD bringing it to her office too. So it was a lot of hemming and hawing, to be honest with you. And I have heard nothing back from but that's only the other day. I might be honest with you. That was Thursday evening. So obviously, probably tomorrow I might get a response, in the post. But this is the thing. It's just the pure ignorance of Bus Éireann. Again, that just tells you a lot when you hear that the TD, the represents the people of Cavan and Mullen, just can't. They're getting ignored. Along with genuine members of the public are getting ignored, and TDs and county councillors are getting ignored by Bus Éireann. You just wonder to yourself, do they have the best interests of the people in mind? And again, Norman Foley is the one in charge of this. Supposed to be overseeing this. Association with the Department of Transport, but it's her responsibility, as was said to me. It is her responsibility to basically do something to bring in extra buses, extra resources for more buses, or to bring in a fund for people to pay for a taxi or pay for whatever. Because you can't get lifts, with COVID. We've been told, you can't get lifts. You can't get lifts with your neighbour or anything like that that's going into work or whatever. You can't do that. That's utterly out of the question. You can't do that, and people do it, but the guards can stop you and say, X, Y, and Z, the usual. But yeah, it's a joke. It really is a joke. And I only say to Norman Foley to cop on a bit and to do something. And I say to Bus Éireann to just cop on too, cop on and have a bit of manners and have a bit of decency. And obviously I have to thank the two TDs and obviously the county councillors who went in on my behalf and tried their best. Obviously they continued to work with me and I continued to work with them. On other issue, on Bus Éireann as a whole, to try and get bus tickets for people in Cavan. I'm still working with them to try, because we did talk about it in one of the council meetings. We didn't talk about it too much, but we probably will bring it up in the next one. Just because we do have to make sure that the young people get to school and they don't have to pay a price, because they already pay too much and expect pay for books and for all that stuff. It's too much cost to people, especially now. I couldn't give a damn for let alone one thing, but it's just the principle, because I like being on the bus for them few years. It was handy. You could get on it and go to school. It was handy instead of waiting around for a taxi for an hour. It was handy. It was pretty handy. Then you had a place to put your bag, you had a nice seat and everything. The taxi, was just difficult because you don't know what time it could come at. The bus usually was always the same time. But anyway, thank you for watching. Take care, everybody, and bye.